Hello, this is Ishan Shahane from Revsportz and welcome to Beyond the Boundary. Today with us we have a really special guest. He's someone who has a fantastic cricketing brain. He's a mentor to several youngsters all across India. He is a batting guru and he's also the director of cricket at the Rajasthan Royals. Zubin Bharucha, sir, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. How are you doing today?
Doing really well. Had a hard workout, and then right in front of you, here we are,
Absolutely. I mean,
ready to
I
rock
don't
and
think
roll.
let's rock and roll. Let's rock and roll. So the basis of this conversation is obviously about high performance and grooming the youngsters for the Indian cricket in the future. But before we get to that, let's talk about your journey. I know it's difficult to sum it up in a couple of minutes, but just a quick recap of your journey into cricket and Bombay cricket.
Yeah, super exciting. Started as a 14-year-old, which was quite late to cricket, but pretty much took it up straight away because I had a background in squash and rugby and football and volleyball and pretty
Hmm.
much played every single sport. So cricket came very naturally to me. And pretty much I took it up when I was 14, and then I played for Bombay under 15 the same year.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously got straight into the system, did well at under 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yeah, I played, in those days we didn't have an India side. So basically it was this national camp with 15 or 20 of the best boys in India.
Yes.
And I pretty much went to almost every national camp for 5 years. And then eventually got picked for Bombay bit later than I felt I should have played, but that's life. And I played for Bombay for 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
and then I decided to leave cricket and go to my masters and things like that. But my sort of satisfaction with what I did in the game was basically I managed to get a Irani trophy and Ranji trophy debut 100,
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
that's kind of my go-to thing, and hopefully can
That's just
continue to
spectacular. Actually, that's my
inspire
next question.
generations.
Now that you've already answered that, you're known to be a great captain. So, what tip would you give a budding young captain at the moment? Because I've heard that you were a great captain, and captaincy is a difficult skill at the end of the
Yeah,
day. So, what tip would you like to give a budding
yeah,
upcoming
captaincy. I
captain?
mean, yeah, leadership. Yeah, I mean, look, eventually it's leadership, it's captaincy,
Yeah,
and in any of these leadership programs or in anything to do with captaincy, eventually it boils down to one very simple thing: what do you do to the guy on your left, and what do you do to your guy on your right?
yeah,
And if you're able to lift the guy on your left and you're able to lift the guy on your right and pull them together and drive that through with yourself, that's leadership. So
true.
leadership is and captaincy involves, taking care of, pretty much everybody in your ecosystem. And if you can put a lot of their needs before yours sometimes, um, you start to get a level of togetherness within the structure. So I think for me, that was always, my thing was to how do I create an element of care around the people that were around me.
Yeah,
And then I knew that if I push them, so there's one element is the caring, and the other element is, what do you seek to do? What is your
absolutely.
vision? And so the vision was always that, how do we get better than the best?
Yes, yes.
And I've maintained that all through my life and all through my, whether it's on field, off field, or whatever it is. If you want to be in a high performing environment, your goal is to be better than the best person there.
No,
So
absolutely. Yeah,
whoever I work with or whoever I deal with or whatever I do, my simple goal is, how do we get better than the best? And then of course I have a
absolutely.
formula behind that as to how you do it. But that's, I think, the essence of leadership and captaincy is basically pulling people together, making somebody, it's like focusing on the nenext best thing,
So true.
rather
So
than
true.
worrying about what happened in the past and so on and so forth. So that my philosophy is always around that, to to drive people, take people from the left and the right, and ensure that they are as cared for as yourself and others in the team. And then your clarity of your vision of where you want to go with it, and how do you want to be better than the best. That's
So
pretty
true,
much
so
it.
true. And you've been a very strong part of that Rajasthan Royals core. And talking about great leadership, Shane Warne was the captain in that winning season alongside Rahul Dravid. You were part of that team as well. So what was the secret over there? What was
Yeah.
the the secret sauce that
Yeah,
helped
I mean,
him?
each look, as
Yeah,
I've defined. Sure. I've defined Wani's leadership. I've defined Rahul's leadership, and they were
yeah.
both great. One is an intuitive genius, and one is an applied genius.
All right.
And so between those two, Wani was an intuitive genius. Rahul is an applied genius. He studies, he researches, he's meticulous with his planning, and then goes and executes. Wani was absolute genius with the ball. There's no question about that. He was probably the greatest ever. And his skill with the ball alone was just magical. And he would be intuitive to the game and intuitive to anything that happened on the field. He would react based on what was happening. And all his success came from intuition. But intuition is always underlaid with a very sort of strong with Wani, it was all about his experiences and his, playing in England, playing all over the world, obviously being part of a great Australian side. So there were many nuances to his greatness. Certainly his bowling was always something that he had that level of confidence that he always knew that if there was a moment of trouble, he could bring himself on and do something magical.
Yeah.
And he was also a person who took people along with him. He was absolutely phenomenal at that. And there were so many youngsters who came through, on his captaincy. Just the fact that he just, in fact, Rahul once told me when he first came to the Royals that he looked around the changing room and he thought there's no way that this team could, with the kind of players that we had, that we could qualify or even win. But then he saw Wani operating and he saw, my God, the confidence he gave the players, the way he talked to them, the way he sort of approached the game. He just had this complete belief that no matter what would happen inside the changing room, he was able to take it out onto the park and just deliver with whatever there was. He just had this unbelievable faith and belief in the person next to him.
Absolutely.
Which is what we were discussing in the earlier part about leadership and captaincy. You just have to have that complete faith and belief in the person next to you. And when you do that, you get uncommon results. And he was always able to produce uncommon results because back in the day, and Rahul as well, Rahul produced uncommon results, but in a different way, through application of data and science and all those aspects. So that's how I viewed those two characters within our setup.
So you would say, in short, that it's just believing in yourself and just going the distance, basically taking it till the final ball.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
20th over.
Yeah, I mean, there's underlining all of that. Obviously, is a lot of practice, a lot of hard work, a lot of perseverance. And all the factors that that people sort of sometimes overlook, in a sense that they think it's a little bit easy to do that. But, what underpins all of this is failure.
True.
And understanding failure is the most critical aspect of any sporting environment or pretty much in life. That if you understand failure, I often talk to the players about, that whether you're batting or bowling in sport and at least in our sport in cricket, you pretty much fail every day. You fail almost every day, and then you have these odd occasions where you do well. And that's literally, even the greatest players in the world only do it 50% of the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the other ordinary guys, if you do it 30% of the time also, you succeed. That's great. So I often talk about failure, and then what do you do after you fail? And the philosophy has to be linked to learning. You have failure, you learn, you fail, you learn. And if you have that sort of clarity of your philosophy, that you are constantly in that cycle of learning and failing and learning and failing, success comes along the way. So you need to be very cognizant of that in terms of the comfort level you have around failure. And that obviously underpins things like resilience, perseverance, dedication, hard work, processes, work ethic. All of that underpins, this aspect. So understanding that for any youngster or person coming up in cricket or any sport really is the key to your success. Because if you don't understand failure, there's no way you're going to learn and improve and get better. So it's an important part of learning.
No, that makes complete sense. And I think it's always a stepping stone from which you have to learn from and then further grow and get better. Zubin, so another thing that I've noticed is that, the Royals and yourself have always invested a lot in youngsters. So what's been the reason for that? If you could share some insight around the thought process, that would be really great.
I think it always goes back, in any of these things, it always goes back to the leadership. It always goes back to the people on the top, the decision makers. And we had a phenomenal, we have a phenomenal owner in Manoj Badale, and he's been there since day one. And his philosophy has always been that there's so much talent in India that you should be able to pick pretty much anybody off the street, work with them, develop them, and then they should be able to play for India. Which is why the year before the IPL, he was one of the guys who brought in this concept called Cricket Star, which was supposed to be a reality show on cricket. Again, looking for youngsters, and pretty much a couple of those youngsters, went on to play for the Royals. Dinesh Salunke went on to play for the Royals, and many others went, and almost 50-60% of the people who played, who were part of that, went on to play first-class cricket. So it was a huge success. And that was, that there's always a seed, and somebody sows that seed. As I said, Manoj put that seed out there, and then the rest was basically all of us jumping on the bandwagon and saying, okay, yeah, I think we could execute to this plan. But yeah, often we forget, in life and sport, the person who sows the seed. And later on, everybody jumps on the bandwagon and says, okay, it was their little baby or whatever. But I'm very clear that at the Royals, it was Manoj who sowed that seed, and all of us then jumped on the bandwagon and tried to figure out how we executed his vision. So yeah, that was our journey.
True, sir. But Zubin, sir, I think you've been in the
pretty much from day one of the Royals. Yeah.
Yes. But I think you've been in the center of all of this, and talent finding is an art in itself. So you've been the scout, and what do you look at when you're scouting youngsters? Like, is there a particular criteria that you're looking at?
Yeah, it's everything, right? It's subjective, it's objective, it's you have data now, you have science, but it's eventually it's years of experience of watching something and knowing something. So for example, for me, if I watch something, I just see it's an essence of time, which is very difficult to quantify sometimes. But it is effectively just time. So you'll watch certain players and you will look at them and you'll say, how does this guy have so much time? And that's the first thing that I see is time. With the bowlers, inevitably, it is something about deception. And that's something that I'm always looking for, is that there has to be an element of deception. And deception can come both in terms of physical aspects or non-physical aspects. So some guy could have very long legs, some guy could have, something very quirky with the way he runs or whatever it may be. There's a level of deception. And then, and similarly on the bowling side as on the batting side, where they have time, where the batsmen have time, the bowlers suddenly find, the batsman is being rushed. So there could be something quirky in the action where suddenly you find, oh, why is this batsman suddenly rushing to play? And now science can prove all this stuff. So we had this particular guy who was with us where the release point from his release to where the ball landed was like 130 or whatever. But the interesting part of, there was something in his release that was allowing the ball, after it lands, his rate of decrease in reaching the batsman. Normally when a ball lands at 130, by the time it reaches after it pitches and goes to the batsman, it probably goes to 126 or something like that. But for this guy, for some reason, it was 130 at landing and just 129. So he wasn't decreasing in speed after the ball was landing on the surface. So you look, so every time we watched it without the data, you were just looking at a batsman being rushed all the time, and we were wondering why is the batsman always late on it. And then the data proved that, he is late on it because this guy has something quirky in his action, where there's a very little decrease between the ball landing and reaching the batsman. So it's that kind of stuff with the bowlers, and batsmen, it's just sheer time. Obviously, you layer the time with things like where does he score his runs, and you then layer it with things like if he scores his runs where there are fewer fielders normally. So he would say have a cut and a sweep, for example, where there's no fielder. and things like that. So each layer is underpinned by a certain level of intuition, as well as knowledge, as well as data, and you eventually have this sort of more complete product that you're looking for. And a lot of times it can be luck as well.
Yeah.
If one player just lands up at your doorstep and he hasn't been somewhere else. So there's an element of all of that. I think we underestimate the luck factor in sport a lot.
Yes, yes. It's a mix of everything.
But there is a lot of that. So yeah, and so scouting is also a bit of that as well. It's all these layers of knowledge and intuition and data put together. It's all this very much with this element of luck.
No, I'm extremely happy you broke that down so beautifully, because I feel like a lot of people wouldn't know the exact details, and the way you broken it down at the moment is just perfect. Now, you've been a mentor to, young Yashasvi Jaiswal, Riyan Parag, Sanju Samson, Dhruv Jurel, and obviously these guys know how to play cricket. They have a lot of talent. So what does a mentor do? Where does the mentor bring that X factor into the game? And what is a mentor's job in such a situation?
Yeah, I think it's a little different for us because, most of these guys came to us as 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds. So it's a very different discussion that I was having with Sanju when he was 16, 17, 18. Yeah. And it's obviously a very different discussion I'm, having with him now. And he's evolved as a person. He's evolved as a cricketer. My knowledge base over the 10 years that I've been around, has evolved as well. So what I was saying to Sanju when he first, he was the first kind of big guy that we took from, 16, 17 to the India setup, whereas obviously we had guys like Jadeja before that, and Yusuf Pathan and Ajinkya Rane and all these guys, but they had their own journeys set out for them. But in terms of actually developing somebody from scratch, Sanju probably was one of the earlier projects that we had. And, I would be open to say that, I was also in the learning phase of my career. So you have different stages at which, your knowledge base is at a different level. Now my knowledge base is at a different level, and it'll continue to grow because, the whole objective of this is, again, it goes back to the franchise, what do you stand for? What do you want to deliver? What do you want to get out of it? So for us, it was very clear that, one of the key reasons we exist as a franchise is to develop players for India. And so that's been our singular pursuit all the way through.
Absolutely.
And now we're just having an opportunity to ramp it up. And we're producing, because as I said, the learnings have improved year on year. So in earlier years, we say it would take us 3 to 4 years to produce a player. We're trying to do that in 1 or 2 years now because we've developed our own knowledge base around that, our own hacks in terms of how you speed up development. And actually, you could say that, all the errors or the learnings that we made via Sanju, we were able to, sort of push all of that into a 2-year program for a Jaiswal, or a 2-year program for a Riyan, or a 2-year program for a Jurel. So these things are, it's just a function, and also the expertise that you have along with you, right? In the sense that, our teams have also built out in terms of, data analysis, science, and inputs from various other experts within the setup as well. So as we grow and have other people inputting into this, including myself, you have a situation where the knowledge base just widens and the expertise in terms of how you produce a player sharpens, and we're getting at the cutting edge of what we need to do to improve that player in the shortest possible time, because eventually time is of the essence, because we sign these players for a 3-year duration, and pretty much in a year and a half you need to get them to deliver for you.
True. Yeah.
So we are able to ramp all that up. So the conversations change a lot with the Jaiswal. As I said, from Sanju to Jaiswal to Riyan, it's each one is so unique in their own way that you have to have programs that work very specifically to each one's strength and weakness. And it's a journey. It's like there's no end point. It's just like one long journey. And as I said, you fail, you succeed, you fail, you succeed. But as long as we are clear that how do we get better than the best, and we're clear on that, then we know what kind of pieces of the puzzle we have to solve along the way. So we're quite clear.
Zubin, so I think you're so right, and I think you're giving back to Indian cricket in so many ways, and I think all of us are so grateful for that. And we can only hope that you and the Royals as well help in, scouting more youngsters who end up doing really well for the country. So thank you for that. Zubin, sir, do you think the coaching methods have changed over time, and do you think it's more difficult to stay relevant with, times are changing, the game's evolving? So have you given this a thought ever?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, and the focus, like I said, for example, when Sanju came in, I was at a different stage of
Yes.
my coaching career, and which actually is a very interesting point of discussion, which is the coach and the trainee or the player,
Hmm.
that connection and where that connection sits in which time frame the coach is in actually matters almost as much as which time frame the
Yes.
batsman's in or the bowler is in, the player is in. So for me, the things that we do, and so now after Sanju, you had a Jaiswal where the learnings were more towards, what is the next generation of cricketer going to be? And how do we produce that next generation of cricketer? So about 3 or 4 years ago, the goals and the sort of vision changed a little bit to sort of address what is coming in the next 5 year cycle. So in the next 5 year cycle, if, for example, you're going to be chasing scores of 200, that boundaries are going to be the most important aspect of that,
Yes.
which
Right.
then goes to the point that if that is going to be the key aspect, you then need to figure out how many boundaries you can score in each phase of the game, and then break it down by how do we then produce the player to execute to that. So it's almost a reverse engineering of how the game is structured. So earlier it was, what do your technique, do this, do this. Here, what we're saying is, this is how the game is going to be played in 5 years' time.
You're
So,
planning ahead.
so we have
Yeah.
to produce these kind of shots. Now, how do we get to work on those kind of
Yes.
shots? Because that's where no fielder exists. And that's what we kind of did with the Jaiswal is we re-engineered his game. Again, there is an element of risk reward. So
Mhm.
you push risk reward into that discussion as well as the fact that where do we get his boundaries. So what you're looking for is a template where you are scoring boundaries yet trying to reduce risk.
Yeah.
Which is in the previous years it was always like, oh, let's not take any risk.
Yes.
That means obviously your boundary count comes down. So here we're reversing the discussion because we're looking at the future. Like you
True.
said, you have to adapt to what is coming in the next generation. And so Jaiswal is a product of that, which is that we're looking at something that is out in the future, and we're trying to bring that template,
In the
to bear
current.
today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so correct, exactly. So him, Rian, Jurel, all these guys are a template of that next generation cricketer who can play the sweep, the ramp, the cut, the blah blah blah, whatever. I mean, we're not all there with that. Don't get me wrong. It's just like we're a long way
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
getting to the template, where we need to be. But we're in the journey, and we've had some success in that journey. And of course, it's eventually sits side by side with risk. So we're trying to reduce risk, but we're trying to increase, scoring.
Yeah.
So it's a very difficult thing to execute because you could possibly do that in the first 6 overs, but then how do you do it in the 10th over or the 9th over? So we're actually looking at how the game is broken down in each phase, based on where the fielders will most likely be, and then engineer shots that will, give you the boundaries at the least amount of risk. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so that's your next generation. That's where coaching is going. That's where you need coaches to start thinking about, and
Absolutely.
eventually, I would go from, certainly the foundations are very important. So I wouldn't change that. So I'm a great believer in foundations. I mean, you can't write beautiful sentences without knowing your ABCs. The same thing with batting or bowling. If your foundations are really solid, you can build, phenomenal ability on top of that and skill on top of that. But if your foundations are weak to start with, you sort of end up plateauing at a certain level.
True.
But if your foundations are strong, you will just keep climbing, to the top of the game.
Absolutely. I think that's just beautifully put. And I think forcing the future in advance is the way to move ahead. And I think Jaiswal, the Riyan Parag, Sanju Samsons are only going to get better with time. And as an outsider, I think we cannot wait to see them go out there and keep and just continue performing on a regular basis. So I think that's just beautifully put,
Yeah.
Zubin sir. And besides coaching, what are the other qualities that you would possibly look in a youngster, which is not cricket per se, like just general qualities that you would like to keep an eye out for?
Yeah. I mean, eventually, look, when you see somebody, like I said, time
Yeah.
is what you're looking for in essence. Um, and the next layer that comes behind that. So I'll give you again a great example of Jaiswal. He was in his first trial with us.
Yeah.
It was at DY Patil. It was the first ball of the morning. He took strike. First ball of the morning. Now you don't know in a trial where the other guys come from. He's like some guy from Bihar, Bengal, Kerala.
Yeah.
You don't know the bowler from Adams. And this guy just walks across his stumps and flicks him over fine leg for 4. And I'm like, he's picked. There's nothing to discuss. When somebody has that level of confidence, attitude, and gumption to do that, you straight away say that, hey, I don't actually need to see much more. And Rian was also very similar.
Yes.
But I remember the very first ball that he got, he just pumped him. I don't know, it was a spinner, I think. He hit that guy straight over mid-wicket for 6, and I was like, yeah, it's just the guy knows this is my ability, this is my attitude, and you eventually have to pick guys based on the attitude, which is that I'm better than the best, and I want to be better than the best. And then, of course, you unearth various other layers. Like Jurel was another great example for us. Because he came from relative obscurity. He was with the Indian running side, then kind of faded away, and then suddenly he was sent to our trial. Very interestingly by one of our players, which was Karthik Tyagi at the time. He just said, I'm sending this boy. Came to the trial, and basically he just looked like he was hungry. He hit some shots, and I remember one shot he hit over extra cover for 6. And I was like, oh my God, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And so that's, that was, and when I go back in time with each of these guys, every single time it has been one shot.
Really?
With Sanju Samson, it was exactly, it has been one shot, and inevitably within the first 2 or 3 balls. So it has happened with Sanju, it's happened with Rian, it's happened with Yash, it's happened with Dhruv, and many, many more as well. But with these guys, I have very specific memories of the first ball. Sanju was first ball. Rahul and me were actually behind the wicket when this happened, and both of us just looked at each other like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah,
he just pulled this first ball from, I remember Amit Singh at the time. He just pulled it straight over mid wicket for 6, and it went and hit the. You've been to the academy ground in Jaipur, and there's that big. Indoor facility which has that metal roof.
Yes.
And he just pulled it straight on that metal roof, and Rahul and myself were just looked at each other and we said, "Oh my God, let's sign this guy right now."
Yeah.
And it was the same with Jaiswal, same with Rian. As I said, Dhruv had this inside-out shot over cover, which was just mind-blowing. So inevitably, when I go back and think about it, it's almost one ball, one shot. That you think, okay, my God, this is something special going on here, or there's something to build on.
So it's a lot to do with mindset, just to go out there, express yourself, have some fun, and believe that you truly are the best. That's the differentiator.
Yeah, I think Ishan, it's way beyond that as well, because I mean, it's easy to say have fun, it's easy to say all that, but I mean, you're talking about such a high pressure environment. You're talking about guys who come from nowhere, have nothing. It's much deeper, I think, than just that. And you just see that in these guys. There's a level of hunger. There's a level of the passion. Obviously, there's a level. There's all that skill layer. So it's such a combination of so many things. Obviously the parents play such a crucial role in all of these things. And there's so many factors that go into that one little thing. That I often kind of think about it a lot and think that, it's not just one layer of things that are going on. There's so many multiple layers that all need to come together at that one moment.
No,
And
absolutely.
it's a very complex concoction actually of this one cricketer, be a bowler or a batter. It's such a complex concoction that it then needs to be broken down layer by layer and understood layer by layer, which is part of the job of a coach or a mentor or whatever, is to break those layers down and eventually bring that level of simplicity to the game, where the guy is not thinking about anything else other than the fact that he has to go and hit a ball or bowl a ball.
Yeah.
But to get to that final point, there's a lot of complexity that needs to be gone through, whether it's training related, whether it's off the field, on the field. And I think understanding that complexity from a coaching standpoint, the standpoint of the mentors, the standpoint of people who are behind the scenes, because it's our job to decipher all of that and then give that guy, that
Yeah.
what you just said, that just go and express yourself.
Yes.
But to get to that one level of expression takes so many multiple layers of work, and work from the player's side, from the coach's side, from the parents, from the franchise, from the owners of the franchise. There's so many multiple layers of that you have to peel away to eventually you guys switch on the TV and see this guy hitting a ball or bowling a ball so
There's a lot of
beautifully,
things
and then
that
you're
go
thinking,
behind it, yeah.
this
Which
is,
yeah.
yeah, there's a hell of a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes to, I mean, and it's, like they say, it takes a village to build a champion. So whether it's a Jaiswal or whether it's a Sanju or whether it's a Rian or a Dhruv, it's not one person who can do all of this. It is multiple layers of multiple people involved at different stages, providing different pieces of advice and guidance, that all needs to then come together. So, that's how complex it is. So while, I sit in one piece of the puzzle, there are, 20 other pieces of the puzzle that other people are handling,
And a lot of people
which
don't
is
know
so
about
important to
this. So,
understand
yeah.
as well.
A lot of people don't know about
Yeah,
it.
it's so
So,
complex.
yeah.
And even the parent, right? Such a big role for the parents to play in all of this. It's almost you can just imagine how difficult it is for the parents. I mean, think about Jaiswal's parents, leaving him to play cricket in Bombay when he was like a 9 or 10 year old, and what they must have gone through. The same with Sanju's dad, and mother. I mean, what they would have gone through, the uncertainty, the not knowing, the injuries, all of this stuff. I mean, it's just it's a heady concoction, and to sort of to peel it all off and understand, and when when you switch on the TV and somebody fails, and everybody's like, oh, what the hell, he played this shot or that shot. But there's so many multiple layers of complexity, stress, fatigue, what has happened, the day before, 2 days before, 3 days before. Nobody knows. So it's a tough one when it comes to sport. But yes, for sure, because you're on display every single time you walk out. There's no place to hide.
Yeah.
You just have to deliver in that moment. I mean, that's what all the practice goes for. Is that the entire focus is what do you do in that moment, and you just have to keep delivering, and that takes a different type of understanding off the field, and how you prepare that whole person for that one moment. It's a complex, it's a very complex process.
No, I'm really grateful. I mean, for the way we've broken it all down. I think it's just beautiful. I think a lot of our viewers will truly, appreciate the way you've broken this whole system down. And a lot of us don't understand what actually goes behind the scenes, and you've been a part of that. So you breaking it down for us really helps. It really helps all of us who probably sees Sanju Samson or Rian Parag on TV. So thank you for that, Zubin sir. My last question for you before we sum up. If you were to pass on one message from your learnings, it can be from your dad, from your parents, to a youngster, just one. I'm sure there might be, quite a few, but if there's one message that you would like to pass on,
I mean, there's always so many things to discuss. Like I said, failure is such an important thing to understand. The learning model is so critical to understand. So one of my philosophies obviously is, what are you doing to improve today? Because you can't do anything about yesterday and you can't do anything about tomorrow. So let's not worry about that. Let's worry about what we can do today to improve. So that's been one of my big mantras with with most of the boys I deal with. Eventually, it's hard work. So one of the things my father actually passed on to me was that there's always somebody else in the world working harder than you.
Yes.
Always. So if you go with that principle that there's always somebody else working harder, you just need to know how much harder you have to work, because you don't know where the boundary is.
Yes.
So pushing yourself, to that boundary, is an essential ingredient of success. I think for all these players, I don't think any of them have reached where they've reached without pushing the absolute limits of mind, body, and soul, to the level where they have then produced those kind of performances. Those performances don't come, just out of thin air. They come out of meticulous preparation,
Yes.
And an understanding of what all it takes to get there. So each of these kids, the bottom line is to apply yourself to a particular situation, and understand that, okay, what am I doing to get better at it, and how do I get better at it? And if you keep it eventually to the simplicity of just that getting better every day formula, it all eventually accumulates, compound interest over time, and hopefully by the end of it, you've developed a certain level of skill. And the last thing I would say is that to go out with a lot of dreams and a lot of faith and belief that things will work out.
Yes.
I think if I had to advise any youngster today, everybody has their own journey and their own path, and it evolves over time. It's not, sometimes you'll sit there and think, I don't know how this is going to happen, or how that's going to happen. But you have to sort of eventually just say everything will be fine, and everything will work out.
Yes.
And it does at its own level, with millions of people, billions of people. But when we're younger, we don't have that faith or confidence or ability to see the future.
Yes.
So when you don't have the ability to see the future, which none of us have, it's just best to just keep dreaming. It's best to keep believing that this is what I'm going to do in the future, and everything's going to be fine with it. So that would be my parting guidance.
Thank you so much, Zubin sir. Just in time, we had 1 minute to go, but it's been a lovely conversation. I'm truly humble.
Perfect.
Perfect timing as always. Thank you so much, Zubin sir. Honestly.
Yes, we like that.
Thank you.